So just going to briefly talk about how to plot graphs, really. What we started doing here is we got the axes, we labeled it correctly on the x-axis, and we've drawn out the axes on the x-axis and the y-axis, and we've also put these little indentations which are going with equal gaps. That's all correct. So you'll get some marks for that. And you put 0 at the beginning. Generally speaking, graphs will start at 0. Not always, but most of the time. So it's a pretty good rule of thumb. And then we want to go up in equal amounts in the time. So that's also good. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Now this is where we find a problem because the time goes up in 2s. So we assume that we're going to go up in 2s on the time here. But we don't have to. And in fact, in this case, we can't, because if we did go up in 2s, we run out of space. And you can't just go off the graph paper, and you can't get more graph paper, because if it was in the exam, they would give you a certain amount of paper, graph paper to draw on. You can't use any more, so we can't do that. What we've got to do instead is think, right, I've got to go, what's my lowest number? 0. What's my highest number? 20. I want to go from 0 to 20. And I've got 1, so I'm going to just rub out these numbers now. I'll just pause. Right, so now I've rubbed out those numbers. I'm going to think, well, how many divisions have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, you want to make sure you go up in a nice number. So 3s, they don't like that. That's not a very good number. We want to, like 4s or 5s. 4s is not great. 5's okay, yeah, or 2s. But generally don't go up in an odd number apart from 5, because we want this, because these are 10. We've got 10 little divisions here. We want to be able to divide that 10 nicely by the number that we're going up in. So if I went up in 5s, then I could divide it by 5, and then 1 would be 2 little divisions. But also we want to think about, in fact, because we're going to be doing this on pen and paper, we don't want to be keeping crossing out our writing. We want to try it out without actually writing anything down. So let's see what would happen if we went up in 5s. 0, 5, so I'm not writing it, 10, 15, 20. Now, if I went up in 5s, I only take up this much space. Now, that's not ideal either. So I want to go up in a slightly smaller amount, so as I take up a bit more space. So if we go up in 4s, 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So going up in 4s would probably be the best option. We're taking up more than half the space. We can't go up in 2s, and 3s is rubbish. So we want to go up in 4s. So one other thing we could do, maybe, if that's 4, then that would be 8. What about if you went 0, then this one is 5, this one is 10, this one is 15, this one is 20. I think that would be the perfect one in this case. What we want to try to do is fit it nicely across the axes, take up as much space as possible, but not obviously too much. And we want the numbers to go up in a nice amount. We don't have to go up in every little division. We can make the division slightly larger. So if I did this, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, that's fantastic. Now we can actually, we've now got 20 divisions between the 5s. And if we zoom in on those divisions there, that's 10. That's another 10 there. So that means that 1 would actually be 4 divisions, wouldn't it? I'm not going to write these. I'm going to write these in temporarily. So if that would be 4, let's get rid of that little subdivision there. We don't want that anymore. I just need to unlock it. So we don't want that one. We don't want that one anymore. But basically, it's like this. Every 4 would be 1. If I've done this correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would be 4. So that's what it would look like. We're not actually going to write this in, we're just going to go up in 5s, but when we want to work it out, that would be where we would plot it, okay? So when we're going to get 2, we're going to be using that value there, okay? It does make the plotting a little bit harder to do, but it spreads it out nicely, and that's what they really want. So I'm going to rub that out now. Now, basically, you'll probably get away with doing it. In the previous one, we're going to go up in 4s, won't we? But this is even better. But the downside is obviously it just takes slightly longer to do. So when I plot this now, the first one, we're not going to do the y-axis now. I just want to make this video mainly on how to separate, how to do the scaling in the first place. So let's get rid of those gaps there. So basically, the first one is 0, so that's going to be, we haven't done the y-axis yet, but it's going to be somewhere along that black line. The next one is after 2 seconds. So 2 seconds is going to be, if I draw a dotted line, and we'll see where that one is. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be somewhere along that line there. Let's turn that into a nice dotted line. So we're going to be somewhere along that red dotted line. That's where we would plot the 10. Of course, we don't know where to plot it on there because we haven't done the axes for the y-axis. We haven't done the y-axis yet. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so yeah, when you rewatch this video, you can have a go. You can always pause it and have a go at plotting them yourself and seeing where they would go.